every time I got an apartment, I would get the apartment and have like a 3-bedroom because in my mind, I'm going to get my kids back, So I kept fighting, but I couldn't understand why I kept running back to the very substance that was keeping me from my kids.
I'm a former Detroit police officer and rode with the One Percenter Motorcycle Club. During that time, I was involved in a lot of altercations. I had a gun shoved in my face. The trigger was pulled, and I got a plate under my left eye. I'm Manny Vitale, and this is my story. Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? I'm Manny Vitale, host of My Fight, Our War, and you can see we're back in good old Connecticut with the one and only Matt Cronin, our producer. A big shout out also to Ian Bick. Thank you for all your support. And while we're here, our home away from home with all of our Connecticut family, I want to give a big shout out to the coach, Tony Morrissey, the Brian Cody Brothers and Sisters Foundation, and all the hope dealers out there, which we will be getting into with today's guest. A huge thank you to all of Connecticut and everybody with Coach Tony and the amazing organization. And today, we are very blessed to have a very special guest, Sharon Williams. And just like all of us, Sharon's here because she's got a story to tell. And, Sharon, I definitely appreciate you coming on with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are more than welcome. We've got a mutual friend with Coach.
Yes.
And, we were reaching out and boom, right off the bat, there were certain names. Of course, again, also with Anna.
Yes.
And was it Peaceful Minds, I believe?
Peaceful Minds.
Her center. She's doing amazing things. We're going to be having her on as well. But we're a very tight community. So, again, thank you. So why don't you just tell us who you are, where you're from?
So, again, as you already said, my name is Sharon Williams. I currently reside in Waterbury, Connecticut, where I've been throughout my entire time of being clean from substance, which has been July 4th, it'll be 18 years.
18 years. Congratulations.
Yeah, I can't even believe it myself.
18 years. Saying that, it reminds me of something that when I first got out of the hospital with my issue is I met 2 individuals, and the one was sober for 30 years.
Wow.
And I remember 30 years. And he said, well, how long have you been sober? And I kind of laughed. I went, 30 days, a month. And he goes, why'd you say it like that?
Right.
And I go, you've been sober 30 years. I go, I've only been sober a month. He goes, why is that funny? He goes, I had to be sober a month before I was sober for 30 days.
Absolutely.
And I thought about that. And he said, when's the last time you were sober for 30 days? I go, I don't even remember. He goes, there you go. So I don't care if it's 30 years, 30 months, 30 days, 30 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a blessing. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And this whole, crazy life that because of the choices we've made and decisions we made in the past is what brought us here. What was, you're like growing up with, like for Sharon was, we hear some stories where drugs and alcohol were like part of the environment growing up with certain individuals, and then others, it wasn't in the family at all. So right. What was yours like?
So I was raised by my mother and my father, and we didn't have drugs and alcohol as a issue in the family. My mom passed away when I was 8 years old, and I think that is where everything began to spiral downward for me. I didn't know it at the time, and I was raised by my father's mother, very strong woman. She provided very well for us, but as I understand it now, it wasn't enough. I was a little girl who lost her mom, and I had to take care of my sister, my brother, and my grandmother because she was sickly. So I had to make sure that the household ran in a proper manner that it should run, and that was hard.
And this is for an 8-year-old little girl.
8-year-old.
Those were your responsibilities.
Yep. My mom came to me in a dream and told me that she will not be coming back and that I needed to take care of my sister and brother. And I took that on. And that's what I
Wow.
did.
How old were your siblings?
My sister was 5, and my brother was 6.
Man, so
Yeah.
you had that, and then you said your grandmother as well?
Yeah, my grandmother. My grandmother, she took very good care of us. But I had to help her. She was diabetic and she had high blood pressure, and so I would have to help her and, monitor like the house and make sure we had our times every weekend where we had to clean our home, and she had to have a certain portion of food. So
Mhm.
I would have to measure her food and help her to prepare for my sister and my brother.
Man, I tell you, that's right there. I mean, just starting off, man. I mean, 8 years. First of all, at 8 years old, to lose a parent, especially a
Hmm.
mother. Um, I mean, I like I said earlier, I'm a mama's boy here, and by the grace of God, thank God, my mom's still with me. But at 8 years old, that's a time where you need that nurturing from your
Yes.
parents. And then at a loss like that is when you need even more nurturing.
Hmm.
And here you are now having to be the one extending care as an 8-year-old. That's just unrealistic. And but so that's something that you took on, and God bless you for it, man. I mean, your brother and sister and grandma. So this is at 8 years old. So then, from then on, growing up, how were things for you?
Well, like I said, my grandmother, she was a very strong woman. She made sure we had what we needed.
Hmm.
Um, and then when I was in, I think 11th grade, I started hanging out and playing hooky from school. And, I was an A student
Hmm.
and a track star. And to this day, I believe that if I didn't go down the road I went down, I probably would be a gold medalist, um, because that's how good I was, But the
Things
path is the
happen.
path,
Yeah.
At that time, not really understanding. Then my uncle, I have two uncles who started using heroin. Um, and, my grandmother tried to keep that from us, but, you know, we
Mm.
could we
You
could
could
say it.
tell.
We could tell. Yeah. And I didn't understand that it was hereditary. I didn't understand any of that. And my grandmother, they weren't able to teach us, um, that we would have to be careful because these are things that could happen to us as we grew up, especially with the trauma of losing our mother. My father was very much alive and he lived in New Jersey, and he my mom knew that my dad couldn't take care of us. So on her deathbed she asked my grandmother to raise us. And so that's what my grandmother did.
Yeah, and with something like that too, you were talking about with your uncles, and obviously older than you with the heroin, and grandma was doing her best to to kind of shield you. And but sometimes with that gap, and depending on the age and stuff, maybe people aren't aware of drugs, what the circumstances are, and what could and could not happen by doing this. So here your grandma's in a tight spot because who knows? Just like nowadays, I'll have people say, "Well, what do I say to somebody who's dealing with this? How do I treat them? What do I say? What don't I say?" So educating and all that. So that's a lot to put on grandma there.
Right.
Now, with the uncles, was this something is that how you were introduced, or how did you get with drugs or alcohol involved into your life?
I truly believe that I had this friend and I used to go to her house and she smoked cigarettes. And I truly believe that when we would be in that house and I would take a puff of that cigarette and it would make me high. And then we would do the pressure points and make each other pass out. And I believe that that was my first introduction.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about too. As far as we had a guy who would hyperventilate somehow, and then his buddy would get behind him and get him like into a bear, whatever it was, and it was
Yes.
just like okay, But so how old was this? When
I was about 9 or
about
10.
9 or 10.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's just and this again, and you hit on something too with your mom passing away at such a young age there. That's very traumatic. That's something, sometimes you'll hear people say, well, as time goes on, it gets easier. As time goes on, you'll get over it. What I've found personally, especially with my losses in my family, is my mom had a great saying one time that someone sent her. It says, "You never get over it. You go through it," and that's what we continue to do. And then you cope with it better in your own way each day. So that's how I kind of look at things.
Hmm.
What was that turning point where it went from just smoking cigarettes to other things as far as the drug addiction?
Well, when I graduated high school, so I wound up living with my father because of the skipping school and everything. And I when I graduated high school, I moved to Colorado with my brother. And while I was in Colorado with my brother, I began to sell, and somewhere along the way, they enticed me to try it, and it didn't affect me at first. It took about a year, and then I realized that I was starting to have an issue with it, but I still didn't understand what was going on.
What was it that you were taking?
Crack,
Crack?
well, cocaine back
Oh
then,
yeah, yeah.
um, and um, and then as time went on, I started using more and more, and then I got pregnant with my daughter, and that really crushed me because at that point I couldn't stop using. So now the very thing that I wanted was a human being to love me unconditionally, and here I was caught out. So I had my daughter, then I had another daughter, um, and along the way I wind up um, my sister wind up calling DCF on me because she knew something was wrong. She didn't know like how deep I was into it, but she knew that something was wrong. And then there we go. We're off and running now because I'm fighting this battle now, trying to keep these two beautiful girls that I love so much, but the substance had me, and I would stay in my house, and I didn't really go out anymore. I just kept using and using and using, and then I started going to treatment, and you know, thinking that when I go to treatment, I'm going to be okay, but that's far from the truth.
Yeah,
Um,
I've had people ask me before they'll hear about someone's recovery, but then you'll hear the backstory, and it's like, oh, it wasn't. I went to recovery, walked in the door, and walked out, and everything's fine. It's I walked in, walked out, and I relapsed time and time again.
Absolutely.
And it's like then you'll hear people say, "How many times have you relapsed?" And someone like once or twice. Oh, it's very common, 5, 6, 10 times. And people look at you; they just don't understand the gravity and how it possesses you until it's you. So with
Absolutely.
something like that. Now with this going on, you said obviously your sister knew because she got the
Hmm.
social service involved. How were your kids throughout this time? How were they as far as growing up?
Um, so my kids, my two daughters, had to go stay with my sister,
Oh, okay.
and then I wind up back and forth through the court system, fighting DCF and fighting their father, because I love my children, and I really wanted my children, but I kept running to the drug because the drug was at that time helping me to deal with the pain that I had because of the fact that I love my kids so much, and now I don't even have my kids. And I realized along the way that I didn't. A lot of people say they enjoyed getting high. I didn't enjoy getting high. It did something for me momentarily.
It was a temporary fix.
Momentarily.
As like you just said,
Absolutely.
it's the pain that you were feeling, and It took away that pain. You talk to any person, and you don't even bring drugs into the equation. Okay, here you are. I give you this choice. You're in physical and emotional pain right now. I can give you this pill, and it's going to take it away from you temporarily. Are you going to take it?
Mm-hmm.
Which I take say yes, not knowing what it is because they want to get that quick fix to feel better. And then I'll say, okay, well, this pill that I'm going to give you, you're going to be addicted now, and you're going to be dependent on that. That's still that choice where it's like it's addiction is so strong that people will actually sit there, even though it's only going to take my pain away for a few moments in time. It's that few moments that I'll take. That's the strength of addiction that we need people to realize how strong it really is.
Absolutely.
And for you, I definitely appreciate you explaining that. So you're going through this battle with your ex-husband, with your sister, with the Child Protective Services. What's going on as far as you and your personal life? I mean, I know you said you were basically homebound and doing drugs. Did it escalate more? I mean, were there issues with with law enforcement? Were there issues where anything is going on in that route?
So absolutely. So I gave up my apartment because I couldn't be in an apartment without my children. So I gave up the apartment and I wound up in a shelter. And I met this young man that I wind up getting into a relationship with, having another child, a daughter. And and I really thought that maybe having this child, I can get my life back on track. But no, things just got worse. He was, you know, uh, unfaithful, and I was acting up. So yes, I've caught many assault cases, and a few drug charges, and DCF kept coming into my life. My oldest two were living with their father. I was still trying to fight for them. Every time I got an apartment, I would get the apartment and have like a 3-bedroom, because in my mind, I'm gonna get my kids back. So I kept fighting, but I couldn't understand why I kept running back to the very substance that was keeping me from my kids. But I also didn't know how to get away from that. So I continued to run into treatment. Treatment became a revolving door for me. But I knew that my hope was in treatment. I started going to the fellowship, and in hopes that would help me. But I truly didn't understand the process. I didn't understand all the lingos. I didn't understand any of that. So I spiraled, and I moved the geographical change. And I had got some clean time, and then I wind up using again. I met I met another young man. He became my husband, and I have this beautiful baby boy, and he wind up in foster care, and I just felt like that was it. I had a crack induced I went into a crack induced coma due to a crack induced asthma attack. And this young lady, I couldn't stand her. That young lady saved my life. And I like to tell that story today because you never know who's going to be there for you. The very person that I couldn't stand is the one who gave me mouth to mouth resuscitation until the ambulance got there. And because of that, I'm able to sit here today and talk to you and tell you, as much as my story as I can. In DC, I've wound up with my son. When I came out of that coma, DC, I've had my son. And I have to bring God into this, because in everything that I went through, he carried me, even when I didn't know that he was carrying me. And I was standing in this picture window, and I could hear my son crying. but he was in this world somewhere, and I didn't know where he was. And at that point, I knew that I had to do something different. I didn't know what that different was. I didn't know what it looked like, but I know that I walked away from this apartment, and I went into treatment again in Waterbury, and I didn't believe that I was going to stay clean. I was on the DCF registry for neglect, and I just felt like my life is just ended. You know, I had times where I just wanted to die. I just wanted to take my own life because I felt that my children would be better off if they didn't have to worry about seeing their mother, but knew they weren't never going to see their mom. But they knew that their mom was 6 feet in that ground, and nobody had to worry about me or if they was going to get that phone call. And that's just where my life had headed. And then I don't know, I can't even tell you. I just found this inner strength, and when I went to Waterbury, I didn't know that I was going to be sitting here with 18 years. Excuse me.
You're fine. You know, you're talking about this young lady that you couldn't stand that saved your life. Was this person was she using?
Yes.
Okay, so what I explain to people sometimes is, you know, the people that don't understand addiction or anything that we're talking about right now, and that's the reason we're talking about this. Of course, tell our story to everybody and anybody. Those who are dealing in recovery, every story helps. But those who don't understand it, hopefully you're getting a glimpse of what we're talking about. And I had a person say how selfish and how weak addicts are when we're in active addiction, which is true. And I said, but don't you dare call us weak when you talk to someone in recovery, because we are the strongest people around.
Absolutely.
And the first one who's going to be lending a hand, and of course this isn't in all occasions, but is usually someone who is either using or is in recovery that knows the road you traveled.
Absolutely.
And is not going to judge you and is, you know, going to be right there to pick you up. And that's what happened with you. So how old are your kids at this point?
Let's see. I think Shanae is 36, Shaquana's 35, Tayana's 28, and my son Cray is 21. He's about to turn 22.
How's the relationship with the kids?
The relationship is good, but you can still see the effects of my addiction has on my children. You can still see it.
So when you had this turnabout, now how exactly, to walk us through that? How now you go into, you said it was Waterbury. Is this where the change started?
Yes, I went into a women and children's where I was able to have I went into a women and children's, and the goal of that was to be able to have your child in treatment with you. But because DCF had been in my life so much, they refused to allow my son to come to treatment with me, and therefore I didn't fit the criteria anymore. So I was scared to death because now I had to find a place to go. I was in Waterbury, Connecticut. I didn't know a soul except for the people that the church that I was going through, that I'm very grateful for it to this day, because the pastor there, he really wrapped me in love, in God's love, and him and his family. And so they would pick me up and they would bring me to church, and I just kept on going. And then there was a lady at the church who was in line at the Salvation Army, and I was just telling somebody the story about how I now have to move out of this program and I don't know where I'm going. And the lady tapped me on my shoulder and said I could come and stay with her. And I was so scared.
Had never met this person. Don't know.
I
who
never
this
met
person
her.
Is.
Well, no, she was from the church.
Oh, okay, but you know.
But I didn't know her.
But I didn't know of her personally.
No, But I was so scared to like leave out of the program. It's like I've done this before. Like, who's to say that I'm gonna be able to maintain? Like, I didn't have no faith in myself anymore because I had already done this, many times. But I started going to the fellowship and the women there. I went to this women's meeting faithfully every week, and those women, I saw their strength. And because I have tried so many times, and I guess I was trying my way because I didn't understand any other way. And I started listening to them. They were telling me, go to a meeting, get a sponsor, don't use, keep coming. And I started doing those things. And before I knew it, I had 30 days. Then I had a year. And I was blown away because, and DCF had told me that I couldn't get my son back until I maintained for a year. So I didn't think I was going to get this baby back. A year? I can't do that, But the faith that I had in those women, and I rode on their strength till I had enough strength of my own. And it was amazing the people that God sent in my life. So I went in. I stayed with this lady, and I told her that I'll be out her house by February 1st, and that was in November. And another young lady was coming in. She was bringing meetings into the treatment facility, and she just took me under her wings. And next thing I know, I had a job. She was like, "You want a job?" I was like, "Yeah," but I was scared. Them people are not going to hire me. Do you know who I am? They hired me, and I gave them 5 years. And then I went back to the treatment facility, and I worked at that same treatment facility for 5 years.
The same one that
The
told you you had to
same-
leave.
The same exact one.
That said you got to go because you don't meet the criteria. Now you're working there helping people.
Yep.
And that's what I mean about giving back. It's just incredible.
Yep. And during that time, I was working on getting my kids back. I got my son back. I was married at the time, and he was in prison, and he was coming home around the same time. I had another young lady who she was out looking for an apartment for me, and I didn't even know it. And she called me and was like, "Come meet me. I have this apartment I need you to look at." She told the landlord all about me. And before I even got there, the apartment was already mine.
Wow.
Yep. And so it was a lot of people that was just moving the pieces of the puzzle.
And that's what it is too. And you kind of said it yourself, that you try to do something and you try to do it your way. You know what? I don't need anyone's help. I can do this. Well, how long have you been dealing with drugs? 10 years. How's it going? So, no, you can't do it. The hardest part is that giving in, that acceptance, and just giving in and saying, I need help.
Man,
Whoever
I
thought
don't,
3 words would be so hard to say.
absolutely. I don't, for me, and I know that we do things our way. But at that time, I don't think it was that I wanted to do it my way. I think it was that I grew up taking care of everybody else. So I didn't know how to take care of me. And I must say that I had 2 family members, male, that was supposed to take care of me. And they didn't. And so I was carrying that burden as well. And one of those people I was afraid to tell my father about. Eventually I did. But I need to say that because somebody needs to hear that. So I carried all that stuff, losing my mom, the things that happened to me as a little girl, trying to protect my sister from the same monster, being able to be successful with that, and just everything that happened along the way. And I wind up um, going to a Christian. I went to a Christian program first. Well, somewhere in within the about 10 programs that I did, and I stayed there for a year. But before I left that program, I knew I graduated, but I knew I was going to use again.
See, and the thing is, too, with, and I'm sure people talk to you about it for advice, the best way to do things. And, I'll have people ask me, how do I stay sober? How do I get sober? Or what's the best way? But there is no answer for
Yeah.
that. The answer is your way. And, and I don't mean do it on your own, your way, the way that you feel comfortable with it, you believe in. For me, my situation was totally crazy because of COVID and shutting the world down,
Mm-hmm.
and places being actually physically closed to go to. Um, so I didn't have actually places to go. I didn't know anything about online stuff, and it was insane. But like this person was saying, like with AA, when you think of recovery and drinking, you think of AA and the steps. Is even if you're not in addiction, that's like, oh, well, that's what you're talking about this program.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I heard people talk about steps and this, and going to these meetings, standing up, saying your name, all this, and giving
Yes.
yourself. And I've had people come to me and they're like, man, I can't. That's not me. It wasn't for me. I had to quit, and it's just because it wasn't for them,
Mm-hmm.
and they felt bad. I'm like, why do you feel bad? It's okay. It's not. This
Your
isn't cookie
journey.
cutter. It wasn't for me either. I went one time and I was so uncomfortable. Nothing against them or
Mm-hmm.
I will take you to meetings. I will sit with meetings with you. I will support. I support AA, Al-Anon, every support group, 100%. But the important thing is you got to believe in yourself, and you got to believe in what you are. You're the treatment program that you're in, and that sounds like, once you did that and found that is what helped you.
Yeah, and I don't know what clicked. People ask me what clicked. I don't know. I can't tell you.
The big guy.
Except that's it. That's my only answer. But inside or something that I did, mm-mm.
People sometimes will ask me about different things with addiction. The highest of highs, the lowest of lows, and you think about stuff that you hear other people do, and this is before we admit that we've got issues, because we always raise the bar on other people. It's like or we'll blame others. It's like, well, man, you drink too much. You're doing this. Well, I don't drink as much as Bob. I mean, Bob's over here falling down drunk. At least
Yeah,
I'm not doing
exactly.
that. Well, until you do start falling down drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it's like, well, at least I'm not getting arrested like Bob is until you do get arrested. So you keep your worst things that now you're doing, and you keep raising the bar. And then, like for me, sometimes I'll sit back and I'll look back at my life and the things I've done. It's like, I can't believe I actually did that. The lying to my mom, the stealing from my family,
Yes.
the physical, verbal abuse that I put them through.
Yes.
And this is up to you if you want to discuss anything at all. But like for me, it helped me get it out there. Is there like the lowest of lows, something that you remember doing that now you look back and
Oh
you're like,
God.
I cannot believe that I actually said that or I did that? Is there something that
Absolutely.
comes to mind for you?
Absolutely.
Did you?
I gave my daughters $100, and when they were sleeping, I took the $100 and I used it, and I got high with it. And the next day, when they got up and they were looking for it, I helped them look for it, knowing that I took it. My oldest daughter knows that because she was at a place where I could talk to her and tell her, but I didn't think that my middle daughter was ready to hear that. Well, she'll hear it now, but you know. So yeah, I mean, there's other things, but that was like the worst for me. Um, the mere fact of losing my kids to this, I always said that I was a motherless, um, that I had children, but yet I didn't have my children. And that was devastating to me. And because of that, it was so hard for me to get a grip on recovery, because I was so devastated because I don't care what people say. I love my children. I love my children to no ends. Like there's no words to describe how much I love my children. But addiction wouldn't let me show them that. And because of that, today we do have struggles,
Mhm.
you know? But I just keep showing up. I keep showing up. And there was a time when I was just so caught up in proving to my kids how much I love them that I was allowing anything to happen, be said, because I was so fearful of not having a relationship with them.
Yeah,
But I've learned today that that's not healthy for me, or is it healthy for them?
I obviously, well, you always hear, you'll never know the power of a mother's love. Don't mess with Mama Bear. That bond between a
Mm.
mom and their kids. Obviously, I'll never know that. I don't have any children, um, but when we were talking about the lowest of lows and the money situation, as you were saying that, and then you start talking about your kids. I mean, you talk about the lowest of lows is having children and not having them because of decisions that you made
Yeah,
has got to be one of the hardest things where, and people again aren't going to understand addiction. They're going to say, and we got to own this, well, Sharon, it's your fault that you don't have them. And you're right.
absolutely.
But at the same time, they need to understand the power. That's okay. So instead of being judgmental now, think about what you just said to Sharon. It's your fault. Yeah, because of addiction. Sharon and all these other people love their kids so much they die for them. But at that moment, they chose this over their child's love. That's how obsessively strong addiction is.
Absolutely.
And that's what people need to understand, that it's not you as a bad person that you don't love your kids, or anyone dealing with addiction doesn't love your kids, because
Absolutely.
they do. But what we're trying to get across is when you're dealing with addiction, the things that you say and do, and you'll hear again, well, it's a choice. Okay, it is a choice, but there's more. It's not that cut and dry, and that's the
Exactly.
important thing to remember.
Exactly. It's a choice to a certain degree.
Degree, and then the chemical imbalance takes over, and
Absolutely.
then that's a whole nother show that for
We
another
don't even
time
want to
as
go
far as
there.
dealing with that.
Absolutely.
But it's just the facts, and just the fact that like I said, dealing with addiction. I had someone saying how weak we are and all that, and then I said, until you're dealing with recovery, because this person, I said, listen, everyday life is a struggle. Your work, your kids, your personal life, finances, your job, all these things that everyone deals with, we deal with them too. People dealing with addiction. On top of that, now place battling addiction 24/7 that never stops. Dealing with that on top of your problems that you say, oh, this is too much to deal with. Deal with addiction now 24/7, controlling that and everything else. So don't ever call people dealing with addiction weak, because we're the strongest you'll ever meet.
Absolutely. And in active addiction, you already have a pile of trauma. And in the active addiction, you create more trauma. The choices made, the things done, you know. And so, like you said, especially, women and mothers, um, they're really judged. I mean, we all are,
Mhm.
but women and mothers are judged to the 10th degree. And it's because if you haven't walked in my shoes, you will never understand.
Exactly.
It took me some years to understand.
So
It
as
took
far
me.
as you with your, you're talking about recovery and all that, and we were talking about this, how going into the program, and you just don't walk out 7 days, 14, 21, 30 days later, and you're cured. How long was it that you were dealing with your addiction? How many years do you feel approximately?
I want to say since about the age of 24, I started. I started. I was smoking marijuana at like age 16.
Hmm.
Um, about age 24, I started selling and then dipping and dabbing into cocaine. It wasn't until I was 27 um, and pregnant with my oldest daughter that I see myself veering off
Okay.
to the left. And it just took its course from there until um, I think I was like 42 when I had my son. And then I think he was 5 when I finally was able to abstain from use.
Now, with your recovery, what with the different programs, what was different from this time that you went in? What changed? That I know you said you don't know what clicked that made it work. Was it just? I mean, was it the weekly meetings? Was it something during, after? What was it that you noticed where you started to feel that worth that's you?
When when I heard my child crying, and my child wasn't even in the room with me. So I knew that God was telling me that He had me, that I got you. And then when the people told me that I no longer fit the criteria, and I had to leave my safe haven, and I was living in the community, and I wasn't getting high. I was getting up and I was going to work every day, and I was getting through each day, one day at a time.
So basically, that's where I kind of got lost a little bit there. So you were in the program with this with Waterbury, right? You were in it for a while up until you didn't. They found out because of the situation, but you were there long enough because I know you said you were feeding off the strength of these women and listening to them and how. So it sounds like just being there with them was a lot for you in a beneficial way. So from there, basically that was your recovery then, because after that was, was that it, or you said, are you still? What are you doing now? Because I know you went back to that same place that said you can't come here. Now you're working there. What are you doing now?
So now I work for a company where I'm contracted by DCF, and so I help families.
The
I
same
help
place that had your
individuals.
kids that you were battling with.
Yeah, I help individuals to obtain um, for work purposes, if you will, sobriety, um, and keep their kids or get it together so they can get their kids back. And I say, how ironic, we don't go through, you know, I'm very spiritual, and the Bible tells me that everything that I go through, I don't go through for me. I go through for somebody else. And so I know that I'm walking in my calling right now, and that I'm able to give them the gift that was so freely given to me. And I'm able to do that on I can have up to 12 cases. And I'm able to not only give the individual that's assigned to me, but if they are in a relationship or married to someone, or someone is in that household that is struggling as well, I pull them as a family, and I help them. That other individual can't be, they're not assigned to me, but I definitely will give them the information. I definitely will help them and tell them, call here, call there, do this, do that. And so I'm really, really grateful for the life that I have today. And I understand that I had to go through what I had to go through to get to where I am today. Um, I um, I have a wonderful, wonderful sponsor in my life who has been in my life for quite some time, and she is an individual that I can tell anything to.
You want to give him a shout out?
Anything.
You wanna,
I'm just going to say, Rita, I
okay,
love you.
Well, Rita, you can see what you're doing. What I always say to people, our words matter, our actions matter. So, Rita, what you're doing is huge. So, thank you, Rita.
Yep. I can tell her anything. There's nothing that I've done that I won't tell her. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I told my sponsor this," and Becky Sue told me that they heard it. Not Rita. So we spend time together. We go away together to different conventions. We call each other queen. And so when I'm dealing with, I hate calling them clients.
I always say family.
Yeah.
When I first started this, they said you got to call what is your group? And it sounded too clinical to me. I go, no, we're family.
Right. Even when I call one of I said clients, which I hate saying, but just so people understand what I'm talking about here. When I'm at work and I'm calling a client, hey, I'll say, "Hey, Queen, how you doing?" Or, "Hey, King, how you doing?" I want to be a part of building them up, and they may not feel like a king or queen today, but, it brings about a smile on their face. And that's what's given to me. We have a network of women that we address each other as queen, and it means a lot. And when our crown is crooked, we have those queens there to help straighten it back up.
I tell you, I say it all the time, man. Our words matter. If you're going to sit there and for me, and I don't judge or I don't talk on anyone. I always look in the mirror when I'm speaking. And for me, it's like I had to own it. I had to own what I did. And looking back, those terrible things, you'd say my name and, Manny or Gunner, you'd say that name in the past. It was followed up with that piece of shit that, but that was all true. That was me 100%. And I had to own it. But now, like you said, queen, king.
Yes.
I tell people all the time now, look in that mirror and smile at that champion smiling back at you. Look in that mirror and know that that's a warrior. I've said it before. No one would blame you if you took your kids, focused on Sharon and your kids, and that was it. No meetings, no events, no speaking, no helping people get their kids back at protective service, nothing. But you just focused on you and your family. No one would blame you for that. That's not what we do in recovery. What's the first thing you're doing? Hey, I want to come on your show and I want to share my story to help others. Hey, I want to come to this meeting or this event you're having, Coach. I want to share what I have with others, even though it's going to be painful. That's what we do. We give and we share. So that just says a lot about you.
And it also helps us to grow.
Yeah.
We're not stagnated because we're just locked away with our families, and we grow. When we give away, we grow. When we help others, we grow. I tell people all the time that they help me as well, because one thing I do know is that it has not changed, and that I need to stay right where I am. So I'm grateful for that. But I need to just go back a minute to my beautiful children. Even though we still have some struggles, we have grown so much, and we have a wonderful relationship, and I have to allow them to be them. And I have to allow them their own process. But I don't have to get caught up in the negativity. Like my youngest daughter, like she is woof. Like that's my she devastates me sometimes. But only in my heart, because
by her words or the
her
things
words,
she says.
her action, more so her actions. Like she stays away from the family. She's labeled herself as the black sheep, and I have to tell her, "You're not the black sheep. You're the black sheep because you say you're the black sheep,
You,
but you have a lot of people that love you, you know. And so I have to allow her process as well. And I just keep showing up. I just keep showing up, and I just keep knocking her upside her head with love, you know. I just hope that our relationship can get where I'm sure she wants it to as well. But to a place where we can just hang out and be happy, and like we do things together. We have family events, but I think that that it could be so much better than it is. And before the Lord calls me home, I want that for her, because I don't want her to have any regrets when it's my time. You know,
it's a process when
it
something like
is.
this goes on, and there's no time frame, there's no time limit, and
Nope.
it's the right time is the right time. And like again, I know it's a broken record, but you gotta own it, or else it'll own you. And another one is you get what you give, and you give what you get.
Absolutely.
And these are things that sound so silly, but you can't get more spot on than that. And
Absolutely.
and I believe in that. And and that's just something that it shows true in all of us. Here, how many years sober now for you?
17 and a half.
17
It'll
and a
be
half.
18 in
So 19
July.
years ago, someone would have said, Sharon, you're going to be on My Fight Our War, sitting there as an advocate helping
Mm-mm.
people in addiction. You would have said,
Absolutely not. When? Where? I don't see that. Like
yeah.
me,
Just
I
like when
have nothing to say.
they talk about, being sober for 30 years. And I laughed. Part of it was because I was surprised I was sober 30 days, or, 30 days. It
Mm-hmm.
was like, the joke was, can you be sober for 30 minutes?
Yep.
Probably not. And that wasn't even being funny, man. Well, I definitely appreciate you sitting here and spending time with us and sharing your story. And before we end this, is there anything that you want to really, for that person, for that mom who's sitting there right now, who's sitting in her apartment, not wanting to leave, and her kids are not there right now, who thinks her life is over? Is there something you want to say?
Absolutely. Don't give up. Believe in yourself. Love on yourself. And if you can't love on yourself right now, surround yourself with people that love you, and you ride on their hope until you gain your own hope, and you continue on this journey, because all things are possible if you just give yourself a chance and you don't give up. If you give up, then you won't have what you want. But if you keep fighting this war, then yes, you will get what you want. And I'm here to tell you that I had DCF cases. I was on the registry. I had criminal cases. And I have a pardon today. I don't have a DCF record today. I own a home today. I have beautiful grandchildren today. And I work for a company that allows me to be fortunate enough to be able to help others just like me. So don't give up.
You nailed yeah. Man, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. I saw it, and you just said it. So you can't put it any better than that. And those were words from the heart. And again, Rita, thank you. Thank you. Um, again, man, what an ending. And I really hope you guys take that to heart, because that's where she just spoke from. And I think you could tell. So, Sharon, it's been my honor and privilege and pleasure to have you sitting here with us. And we're going to be here, part of Coach's Life, with the Brian Cody Brothers and Sisters Foundation, the Hope Dealers, Peaceful Minds. We're
Yes.
going to be part of this community now.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be seeing more of you.
Yes, you will.
And if you have something that you would like to say, not only here in our studio here, I've got a studio in Detroit that I do a lot of remote lives from, where I would basically just send you a link, and we would go live, but via monitors.
Mm-hmm.
If that's something that you would like to do, I'm throwing that offer for to you, so we can keep in touch that way as well.
Absolutely. Whatever I can do to help another individual, you know. And I want to say that what I just said to the women, I also mean for the kings.
That goes for all the kings and all the queens, and you heard it from the queen herself, Sharon Williams. Sharon, thank you, and definitely look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.
And to you guys, just remember what she said, and this is it's a tough war. This is my fight or war. People are dying, and they don't have to die. So let's come together. We're a family here. We don't judge. We are here to help, support, and love and motivate, and when needed, give you that kick in the ass. So
Mm-hmm.
just please check us out on YouTube. If you can go to YouTube and follow us, subscribe, go over to TikTok. It would help us out tremendously. So until next time, love you guys. Keep fighting the good fight.